Joining me now, Greg Sheridan, foreign editor, of course, at The Australian. Greg, the Australia, Israel and the Jewish Affairs Councils have said they reject this statement. They say it absurdly accepts Hamas propaganda. We all want this war to end, but how it is ended and what becomes of Hamas, that's also critical in any equation, isn't it?
Yeah, Peter, great to be with you. You're right, of course. Look, I think the Albanese government is not trying to have any effect on the Middle East. It's just trying to manage domestic politics. Because it took against Israel right from the start, it now has no influence with Israel at all. A few things to remember about this. The overwhelming moral responsibility for what is an appalling human tragedy in Gaza lies with Hamas. They could end all this fighting tomorrow by releasing the 50 Israeli hostages they have, of whom we think probably 20 might still be alive, perhaps 19, and 30 are dead. Now, Hamas wants this devastation. It wants its own people to suffer this devastation because it figures that this is damaging to Israel. On the other hand, that doesn't exempt Israel from its moral responsibilities, and it does have, as the dominant power, an absolute responsibility for the civilians in Gaza. I mean, this is a terrible circumstance. The statement itself is internally contradictory. It says we need a negotiated ceasefire, and then it says we need an immediate unconditional ceasefire. There is a ceasefire on the table. Israel has agreed to it. Hamas is rejecting it. I don't think that these statements achieve anything, and I don't think the Albanese government has done or said anything useful about this terrible, tragic situation since the first terrorist atrocity on October 7.
What about the slaughter of Druze civilians and Christians by terrorists in Syria? Christians, I have to say, right across the Middle East are being slaughtered. I mean, where's the statement there from Wong? Where's the UN? Where's the marches? Where's all the other things we hear about in terms of Gaza?
Yeah, the sad truth is, Peter, that unless a murder is conducted by Americans, Israelis or Australians, the Australian left has no interest in it. So there are people dying in very large numbers in Yemen, in Sudan, in the Congo, Christians all over Africa and in parts of Asia and all over, not all over Africa, but in several parts of Africa, in several parts of Asia and in the Middle East are dying in large numbers, being killed, being murdered by Islamist terrorists. And honestly, the government may have said something about this. I get 300 emails a day, and I may have missed the one where they condemn the slaughter of Christians in Africa and the Middle East. But I haven't heard I can't recall a single word from them. And lately, this terrible killing of Druze and other minorities in Syria. But that's why I don't think any of this stuff is driven by genuine moral outrage. It's driven by politics. And, unless the villain is from the designated set of villains, the international left simply has no interest in talking about the matter.
We're going to move now, I guess, to a phase of Trump watch. We've really got to have a meeting no later than by the end of the year. We've had 6 days of the Prime Minister's time spent for not a lot of gains in China. And basically, if you listen to the Prime Minister, he wants to have this meeting with the US President, if he can get it. He wants to tell him what lines he's drawing on the alliance. Don't mind the ANZUS Treaty or anything else. But he's hoping just to do it in a corridor at the next international summit. So 6 or 7 minutes for the US President and 6 days for Beijing, for the leadership in Beijing. This is becoming a farce, Greg.
It is, but sadly, the Prime Minister is not suffering for it politically as yet. I think this has been comprehensively mismanaged in terms of Australia's national interest. He gave Beijing a tremendous propaganda win and got nothing out of it. Beijing can say, look, even America's closest ally sucks up to us and does everything we tell it. We told it not to increase its defence budget and it didn't. We told it to shut up about our military incursions around its territory and basically it did. So Albanese every now and again sends out Penny Wong or Richard Marles to make a reassuring statement on Sky News. Anthony Albanese didn't roar like that when he was in Beijing. And I think from the start, he's mismanaged Trump. Trump is very difficult to manage. Trump is a very difficult president, lots of minuses as well as some pluses. But you've got to have an agenda. The United States, as Penny Wong says, is our core strategic partner. All of our security and $1 trillion of investment is tied up with the United States. Beijing, on the other hand, is the regime which has caused the most dangerous strategic circumstances we've confronted in 80 years, as the government used to tell us until 5 minutes ago. And yet Albanese spends a week cooing and billing and singing the praises of this regime, and he talks in this, niggardly, stultified, sort of constipated fashion of the United States, for whom he has no agenda, no plan of management, nothing to say. I think this is a low point in Australian diplomacy. And, whatever Trump is, Albanese has a task to manage that relationship in the Australian national interest. At the moment, he's showing no signs of doing that at all.
I think on that score, he is politically one of the most rat-cunning I've seen in a long time. But on the big stage and in the big policy arena, there's a real hollow man about Anthony Albanese. Just before we go, I mentioned it was a ceremonial day in Parliament. Of course, all the new MPs, they come in, they get their spot in the chamber and they get sworn in. Now, given you've got this series of best-selling books on the very topic, I want to play this. This is the Labor front bench, some of them being sworn in today, and you'll see which of the ministers are picking up a holy book.
Honourable members making an oath, please take the religious text in your right hand. Do each of you swear that you will be faithful and bear true allegiance to His Majesty King Charles III, his heirs and successors according to law? So help you God.
It looks like Tony Burke's got a family Bible there. The Prime Minister bangs on about his Catholicism but doesn't swear on the Bible. We are a country built on the Judeo-Christian tradition, right? So you look at the Parliament and it used to only be a handful that would take the affirmation. Now it's only a handful that take the oath. How long are we going to remain a Judeo-Christian country, Greg?
Well, it's a good question, Peter. I think I saw Jim Chalmers pick up a religious text there. I'm not sure. I don't want to verbal him in any way. So look, I'm sad about that, but I'm not censorious. I've got no criticism of the individuals. Each must live according to his or her conscience, and they should, make their oath of affirmation or swear by the Bible, whatever is right for them. But it is a sad thing. It is a sad thing that our parliamentarians are bereft of the inspiration, the knowledge and the consolation of religious belief. I'm not making any criticism of them. I just think it's a pity.
I agree with you there. All right, I'll leave it, Greg. Thank you.